This story happened more than 10 years ago, when I was still a student. It has a few graphic details of animal harm and graphic violence, so discretion is advised. As with most students, I was always broke, and had a few ventures apart from my part-time job to bring in extra money. One of them was house and pet sitting. I've always had a love for animals, so when this couple contacted me to ask to house sit for them for the last few days before they return from an overseas trip, as the last sitter has bailed on them, and the 6-month-old golden retriever puppy would be left alone, I jumped at the opportunity. The fact that they promised to pay me the full 2-week fee for staying there less than a week made it just more appealing. Little did I know how bad it would turn out. I got the details, got the keys from the agent, and headed over to the house as it was already after 5 p.m. and almost dark, as it was early spring. I got to the house, which was really nice, but it bordered a not-so-good area that was and still is prone to crime, house break-ins, robberies, etc. It did not bother me much, because nothing will happen to me. I know, young and naive. The first 4 nights went off without a hitch, watching movies, jacuzzi, and just generally enjoying myself. The owners would have returned on the 5th day, fairly late that night. I went over to check on the dog. I got a call from them at about 10 p.m. saying their flight got delayed. They are going to stay in a hotel and do the 3.5-hour drive back the following morning, and asked if I could sleep there again that night. This was fine with me, as I was already there and had my overnight bag still in my car. I called my dad to let him know of the plans, as I was still staying with my parents, and he specifically asked what the address was. I normally did not give him details like that, because I was old enough to look after myself. I still believe to this day that probably saved my life. I eventually got to bed about 1 a.m. and it felt like I had only slept 5 minutes when I was awoken to a window breaking and I could hear movement and what sounded like footsteps running down the hallway. The first thing I did was grab my phone and just hit redial. Thanks to my old Motorola phone, redialing was as simple as pressing one button, as my dad was the last number that I had called, hoping that he wakes up from the call. I then dropped the phone in between the headboard and mattress in case my dad picks up, so that he can hear what was going on. I had barely done that when the first guy stormed through the bedroom door. I could see his silhouette, and he had a knife in his hand. When he saw me, he raised it and came at me. Now, one thing to those that are unfamiliar with South Africa and the crime is that robberies and home invasions usually are very brutal and violent. People get murdered or tortured if they in the slightest retaliate or not cooperate with the robbers. Out of instinct, I raised my legs back when he came at me, and when he came within reach, I kicked both legs out as hard as I can. Now, I'm not a small guy. I'm 6'3", and at that stage I weighed about 100 kg or 220 pounds, and I was fit and strong. My time not spent at uni or work was at the gym. I could do an easy 250 pound bench, 350 pound squat. When I kicked and made contact with the guy, he completely lifted off the ground and shot into the wall. Luckily, the knife shot out of his hand as well. Before he got the chance to get up, I was on top of him, driving my knee right into his face, and, in return, his head into the wall. I knew that my life depended on it, so I put in some extra force. The guy dropped like a stack of potatoes, but before I could get up, I heard the sound of a pistol cock, and I froze. It felt like all the blood drained from my body, and I became just numb. I remember the only thing that went through my head was that if he shot me, I would rather die than be disabled or dependent on other people that would have to take care of me. He stood like that with a pistol against my head for what felt like hours, but was probably less than 10 seconds. I did not move, and he eventually said in broken English to get on the bed, face down. I panicked, but thought if he wanted to shoot me, he would have already done so. So I did as he said. He threw a blanket over me, and I turned into a fetal position with my back against the wall, just so, if they wanted to stab me, I had my legs and arms in front to protect my body. Now, by the time I had forgotten I called my dad and the guy that I had need was still down, I heard a third guy come into the room, and I could hear what sounded like Portuguese to me. I could not understand what they were saying, but I recognized it as we used to go to Mozambique on holiday a lot, and that is the main language spoken there. The one guy tried to get the guy that I put down off the ground while the other started to ransack the house, shoving valuables into a big bag. It was about at this time that I heard tires screeching and the car approaching at what sounded like Mach 1. The car skidded to a halt in front of the gate, and I heard someone scream. It was my dad. The 3 inside the house panicked and ran out of the back door and tried to jump the fence. My dad opened fire, shooting in their general direction. Now I know my dad missed them on purpose, because if he wanted to hit them, he would, as he is not one of, but the best shot that I know. And I'm not just saying that because he's my dad. He is ex-Army Special Forces, represented South America in the Clay Pigeon World Championships a couple of years ago, has various regional pistol and rifle championship titles, and he is a gunsmith by occupation. I have seen him hit golf balls at 50 meters with his pistol. Politics and the racial situation in the country would have had him in big trouble if he had hit one of them. I grabbed the house keys and pressed the gate remote, and my dad called the police while he came in. I met him at the front door, and he walked over to the car to wait there for the police. It took them over an hour to get there, some excuse of no vehicle available. By that time I had calmed down and started to look for the dog. I could not find her anywhere. I grabbed a flashlight from my dad and started scanning the surrounding yard, and as I got to the corner I could see her laying on the ground. I got to her and saw she was dead. Later, autopsies revealed she was poisoned, and the police found pieces of meat laced with poison near the fence. Poisoning is a pretty standard practice in my country for dealing with dogs at a house or area that is targeted for a break-in or robbery. I was fuming and so sad. The police were also pretty useless and had a don't give a shit attitude, and barely took our statements. By that time it was starting to get light, and I retrieved my bag, phone, and locked the house as good as I can without touching anything, and drove home behind my dad. Only when I got home I got the story from my dad's side. He said he answered my call only to hear the shouting and what sounded like fighting going on, and when I did not respond, he flew out of the house and raced over. Luckily, he asked me for the address the previous night, and he knows the area pretty well, so he knew exactly which house it was. Now, my dad got there pretty quickly, and he said he stayed on the line the whole time, only hanging up when he stopped at the gate. My parents' house is about 10 kilometers or 6 miles from there, to a residential area. It's normally about a 20-minute drive. The call duration was 7 minutes and 13 seconds. I met the detective there later that day, gave my statement, they took fingerprints, etc., and the owners got back about the same time. The rest of the day was a blur, as I came down from the shock and adrenaline. Now, that is not where the story ends. About 7 or 8 months later, I got a call from the detective, telling me that they caught the guys and I must come to a lineup to point them out. I specifically told her that I did not see any of their faces as it was dark, and after the guy held the gun against my head, I was under the blanket and did not see anything. She assured me that they caught them on fingerprints and would show them to me beforehand, which might not be the ethically correct way to do it, but they wanted to have as much evidence as possible against them. You will understand why in a minute. I got to the police station, and unlike you see in the movies, there's no one-way glass in all separate rooms. They bring the 3 guys into the room and make them stand against the wall. The one, which I was later told was the leader, which was the one I had need, looked at me with so much hate, as I had never seen in my life. He had the eyes of someone that would slit your throat and not blink an eye. His name was Joseph Dragon Sambo. He put his hand up to his neck and made the slit my throat gesture. You know which one I mean. We left the room, and the detective gave me a copy of his rap sheet. Amongst others, 4 counts of murder, I think 8 to 9 for attempted murder, multiple assault, aggravated assault, over 100 of house breaking and entering, and robbery. I was shocked. The detective told me that if I had not taken him out fast that night, I would have definitely not gotten away so lightly. Now, this is also not where the story ends. 3 days later, I got another call from the detective, saying that I should be careful, as he had escaped from custody and they have not yet caught him. I was not worried too much, as the robbery wasn't at my house, and I had changed cars, so he probably could not find me. Also, I got my firearm license and carried my pistol on me 24/7. I did not hear anything after that, until about 2 years later, when I saw the detective in a grocery shop. We started talking about the case, and she told me that he was killed during a home invasion. He broke into the wrong house, and the owner was waiting for him, with pistol in hand, shot him 1 in the stomach and 1 in the neck. And thanks to the slow response time of emergency services and police, he bled out on the guy's living room floor, ridding society of a piece of human garbage. I want to add a bit of info to this. All 3 that were caught were Mozambican nationals, undocumented and no fingerprints or ID in the system, essentially illegal immigrants. And it is of opinion in South America that more than 70% of all violent crime is done by illegal immigrants, mainly Mozambican, Zimbabwean, and Nigerian descent. It makes it fairly easy, because none of these countries have extradition to South America, so if it gets too hot, they just flee back over the border and nothing can be done. This whole ordeal has made me more vigilant, heightened my situational awareness, and made me a little paranoid to double and triple check all doors, locks, etc. Also, my heightened situational awareness has allowed me to remove myself from a few potential dangerous situations in the years after the incident. but it has also robbed me of my peace of mind. I have since immigrated to a safer country, but I still sometimes wake up at night if I hear a noise. So, to keep up with tradition, Joseph, we will never meet again, as you have passed. But, to his cronies or anyone that wants to try something similar, please do pay me a visit. I will arrange your swift departure and reunion with Joseph in hell. And to Joseph, I hope you died in agony for poisoning Daisy. Thanks so much for watching tonight's episode of Spooky Season. I hope you have enjoyed watching or listening to it as much as we did making it. If you liked it, leave a like rating down below and subscribe for future content. See you next time. Sweet dreams.